y'all, welcome back to the channel. With our nation's power grid becoming more and more unreliable and the growing threats of cyber attacks growing greater every day, I firmly believe that every household should have some form of backup power system. Something that can get you through a quick blackout, be portable if you need to evacuate, and be silent when you need to. So let's talk today about solar generators, what they are, how they work, what they're capable of, and how to choose the best one for your situation. First things first, what is a solar generator? Even though you'll hear them called solar generators, they don't actually produce any power. They're basically large power banks that store electricity and have a charge controller, an inverter, and a large capacity battery. The charge controller is going to regulate the power coming into the system so you don't overload the battery. This is especially useful if you're using solar panels. The inverter converts the DC power of the battery over to AC power, and that's what gives you the 120 volt outlets required for normal household appliances. Most power stations that I've come across have several different ways that you can charge them, including just regular wall outlets, solar panels, and DC outlets like what you have in your car. When choosing a power station, that is one of the big factors that I think you should look at. In this video, you're mostly going to hear me talk about EcoFlow, but it's because it's what I have on hand. It is what powers our entire off-grid system, and it's what I'm most familiar with. But the information in this video can go to any brand. So if you have a Yeti or a Jackery or a Predator series solar generator, this information is going to be the same for all brands. So what can you run with a solar generator? When you're looking at which power station to buy, you definitely want to know what all it can handle. This one is the River 3, and it is the smallest one that we own. It can only handle pulling 300 watts at a time or a 600 watt surge. That surge rating matters because some appliances are going to pull a large amount of power when you first turn them on and then settle down as time goes on. So a microwave would be a good example. When you first turn on a microwave, it's going to jolt way up into the wattage that it's using, and then it's going to taper down into like a normal level. So you need to make sure that whatever power station you do choose, you need to think about what you'll be using on it and if it can handle that initial power surge. The River 3 is on the small side. It's really only good for running a TV, a router, charging phones, and that'll only last you about 4 to 6 hours. You can definitely use it to run a fridge or a freezer, but you're not going to get very much time out of it without needing to recharge. The Delta 2 can handle 1800 watts with a 2200 watt boost. Chris likes to use this one when he's working around the property and he's using like a miter saw or a table saw. He likes to carry this one around since we don't have power at every nook and cranny of the property. I think out of all of our big tools, the only one that this can't handle is the planer. It'll definitely handle something like a microwave or an induction cooktop, and it'll for sure handle a crock pot. What are watt hours? Every power bank, even little ones like this one, are gonna have their battery capacity listed in watt hours. But a lot of times with these little ones, you'll see them listed in milliamp hours, because telling you that this one contains 10,000 milliamp hours is a whole lot better than me just telling you 35 watt hours. Now this 10,000 milliamp or 35 watt hour power bank will charge your phone 2 or 3 times, but when you look into something bigger like these Delta 3 Classics with a 1024 watt hour battery, you're gonna get 85 times the charging power. On the other hand, if you use something as powerful as a microwave, you're only going to get 5 to 10 minutes of cook time before you deplete that battery. That's why I'm always going to tell you that a microwave is never a reliable source to cook food in a grid down situation. If you have to use something electric to cook food while you're on a grid down, definitely recommend something like a crock pot. The same Delta 3 Classic with the 1024 watt hour battery, you can use a crock pot on low for 8 to 10 hours. And the same thing goes with your refrigerator. You can get about 8 to 12 hours on just one full charge with the Delta 3 Classic. I've also gotten a lot of questions about running a CPAP on something like the Delta 3 Classic, so I did a little bit of research. If you're using a CPAP with the heated hose and the heated humidifier, you're probably looking at about 80 watts. The 1024 watt hour battery should last you about 10 hours or one good night's sleep. If you're not using the heat, you're probably only looking at running about 40 watts at a time. So that's going to put you at 21 hours of use before you deplete the battery. Now keep in mind that this is only if the CPAP is the only thing being ran. If you're plugging in phones or lights, that's going to deplete that battery a lot more quick. If you haven't noticed already, none of these generators are going to get you through more than a day of a grid down situation. That's why it's super important to choose what takes priority, but also have some ways to charge it. There are several ways that you can recharge one of these batteries. If it's a grid down situation, you won't be able to use a wall outlet, obviously, but you also can use a solar panel or your car's battery. When Hurricane Helene hit, we had just switched over from our DIY Victron system with 400 watt hours of battery over to the Delta EcoFlow Delta Pro Ultra, which has a little over 18,000 watt hours of battery. And let me tell you, that storm really put it to the test. A few days before Helene hit, we had rain, and then Helene hit, and then for 4 or 5 days after, we had 100% cloud cover. So when we were supposed to be getting, 1,500 watts coming in on our solar panel, we were lucky to get 80 to 100 watts coming in. We really, really relied on our backup gas generator to keep our batteries and our electricity going. So don't think you can just pick up one of these power stations and a solar panel and you'll have nothing to worry about. You need to think about other ways you can keep it charged during an emergency. Some power stations are going to come with a DC plug that'll just plug into your car outlet, and this part goes into the solar generator. But I'm going to recommend that you pick up something more like this that's going to attach to this, and it's going to give you the ability to hook it up directly to a 12-volt battery. This is one that we just got from Bouge RV, and we use this one to run our electric cooler when we take it out on the boat. But I am going to say, if I had to do it all over again, I would get the ones that have the alligator clips on the end. It makes it a lot easier when you're trying to just hook it straight up to a 12-volt battery. While we're here, let's go ahead and talk solar panels. How do you know what solar panel to choose? You don't have to worry about name brands here. This Predator solar panel will work with all of these EcoFlows. Same goes with Jackery and Blue Yeti. They all have the same type of plug-ins. Camper that we have and we first lived in when we first moved to the off-grid property, it has a solar-ready plug on the side. So we were able just to plug in a small solar panel and keep those auxiliary batteries charged. So for the first few weeks we were here, we just used the 100-watt foldable panel from Harbor Freight, and we were able to keep those batteries topped off as long as it was sunny. Also, there are only 2 types of solar connectors that you'll see on most panels. I've only ever seen this plug type used with larger solar systems like the Delta Pro Ultra or like DIY systems. For most of these little solar generators, you're going to be looking for one that looks like this. Harbor Freight has this foldable 200-watt solar panel, and if you saw my video yesterday while I was doing research for this video, they have a coupon going on right now, and these are marked down to $199. So if you're seeing this in 2025, I think the coupon expires Christmas Day, you can run out and get you one, and these are very good panels. We have no issue with the Predator series at all. But this panel does have those MC4 connectors, and so I could plug this directly into our Delta Pro Ultra, but in order to use it with one of these systems, I'm gonna have to have the adapter. So if you buy one of these and you get home and you're like, how do I connect it? You just need to get that XT60 adapter and it'll plug right in. I'll link the one down in the description below just in case you wanna see which kind you need to get. And look at my makeup off. When choosing a solar panel to recharge your power stations, you're going to want to research how many watts, how many amps and volts each one's internal charge controller can handle. This Delta 3 Classic can handle 500 watts with a solar limit of 60 volts and 50 amps. This Harbor Freight 200-watt panel is 10 amps. So you would think I could just put them together, I would have 400 watts and still be under the 500-watt capacity. But if you were to hook these up in 2 in parallel, you're going to go over that amperage at 20 amps. And so these power stations are going to go into fault mode. So you got to find that middle ground if you're trying to max out the solar capacity coming into your power stations. But if you just want to stay safe and not worry about all that electrical mumbo jumbo, because I know I don't, just stick with something under the wattage and you should be perfectly fine. I'm telling you, there's so much to learn with solar that sometimes it makes my brain hurt. And that's usually why I leave it to Chris. Another thing I would add is when it says it's 200 watts, you're never going to get 200 watts out of this panel. That 200 watt rating or 150 watt rating or whatever, that is if the solar panel is in perfect condition, the perfect angle, the perfect height, the perfect sun coming in, no clouds in the sky. So like more than likely you are never going to get the 200 watts. I would say with this one, we're looking at probably getting 150, 170 on a good day. So definitely keep that in mind when you start dealing with solar panels. And stay away from those tiny little 30 watt panels. They are practically useless. How much do these things cost? Power stations can get pretty expensive, just depending on how many watts you need, how many watt hours the battery is. Although the prices, I think, are starting to come down as the technology gets better and better and more people are buying them, I still think that some of them are outrageous. The River 3, which is the smallest one that we own, is on Amazon right now for $189. If you're on a tight budget or you're looking for one that is super lightweight, this one is only 8 pounds. I would look into one of these if you're looking for just basic recharging needs or running a freezer for a very, very short amount of time. I did compare this one to the most compatible one at Harbor Freight. That one was 350 watts and 294 watt hours, and that one was running around 279. Is that extra 50 watts and 20 something watt hours worth the extra $100 difference? I don't think so. The Delta 2, which is EcoFlow's older model, is running about $400 on Amazon right now. And even though it's double the price of the River 3, you're getting way more capability and way more battery capacity in both the Delta 2 and the Delta 3 Classic. But with that bigger battery, you're also looking at more weight. Each one of these weighs in about 27 pounds. So they're not the most fun to carry around long distances, but these are pretty easy to just throw in the car and go. We take them with us when we're camping. When we went off-roading last weekend, we took this one with us and had our Starlink plugged into it. So I wouldn't recommend trying to throw this one on your back and hiking, but if you're in a vehicle traveling, going camping, or using it across the property, like if you have, you know, a project that needs to be done and there's no electricity ran over there, these are good to carry and use if you have a project like that. So with all this information, how do you choose the right generator for you? First, you need to think about why you're getting one. Is it just short-term outages? Is it making sure that if the power goes out, just blips, you're not gonna lose everything in your refrigerator? Is it for having 120 volt power with you if you're forced to evacuate? Or is it just something you want to have with you so you can run a Bluetooth speaker while you're camping? Once you figure that out, then you need to figure out how much power each of those things you wanna run will use. For the most part, you can just kind of Google it, like 17.5 cubic feet GE freezer. How many watts does it usually use? Those are somewhat accurate, but if you really want to get technical, they do make watt readers. And I bought one of these when we were still living on grid, and I used it all around the house to kind of see what everything took and like if we were going to be able to carry it and bring it with us and use it. So those are pretty darn accurate, and they'll tell you how many watts it's using at the time and how many watts it uses within a 24-hour cycle. So those are really, really neat to have around if you want to get your power bill lowered, but also if you just want to see if it'll go on your solar generator just fine. And then once you have your solar generator in mind, then you can use that information to figure out what solar panel would be best for you. But like I said, please remember, you do not have to match brands. So if you find a cheaper one that you like, or you have a different brand of solar panels that you prefer, they will usually all work out together. This video, I really tried to focus on just the bare bones of solar generators or power stations. There is a lot to learn when it comes to solar, especially when you start getting into whole home backup systems like the Delta Pro Ultra, or big DIY systems like people are putting together with Victron. But I wanted to keep this video simple and easy to understand for people just beginning or people who are just now starting to look into getting these portable power stations. And I do want to do a video on our entire main setup, but I really want to wait on a day when Chris has some time to explain it, because that is kind of his forte and his doing. And so it would be a lot better for y'all if we waited until Chris had some time and he's able to explain what all he did out there and our future plan. But I do hope this information helped you if you're thinking about grabbing one of these portable power station for your preparedness plan. And don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and we'll see y'all in the next one.